Pat Brady joins us. Hi, Pat. How are you?
I'm great. Good to see you guys.
Nice to have you back in.
Jane and John.
Pat. And Pat, nice to have you here. All week, I've just tried to present there are alternatives to Trump. So, you can talk about Trump all day. We're not interested in talking about Trump right now. We want to talk about the other candidates. So I doubt we could kick this out in one segment. So I know you've got a hair appointment, but if you could stick around a little bit, get your hair and nails done later, it may take a little longer.
I got a diet gray. The gray, it starts turning dark again, so I have to put the gray in.
I like that.
I love your denial. We covered denial on Monday. Yeah. All right, the 5 stages. Denial, covered. Anger, covered. Bargaining, covered. Depression, covered. Today, let's do acceptance. In other words, I accept I ought to at least look at the other candidates that are out there. So let me start first with the former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson. Like him, don't like him, why not?
Like him a lot. He's a kind of a Reagan disciple, good guy, not a chance to win, but would be actually probably be a good president. His run's probably more about getting a cabinet spot than it is being president, but very high-quality guy.
And why does he not have any chance? Just name recognition and money?
All of the above. Didn't have any money, didn't have any name ID. There's no great message there. He's not like a Vivek or something that's going to attract a lot of attention, but a very solid, good, well-thought policy guy, good guy, but not a chance.
You mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy, a guy who is sort of been interesting to people at first, and now there's a lot of anger about this guy, and a lot of people coming out after him. Karl Rove came out yesterday and said, complete fraud. No idea what he's talking about. Is this guy dangerous?
He's dangerous in the sense that there's people that listen to him and actually believe him. But we talked about it 2-3 weeks ago that he's nothing but a fraud. He's a carnival barker. But at least he's getting caught. And typically every presidential election, there's one shiny new object that everybody pays attention to. But this guy is a little bit scary, particularly some of the theories he's talked about in the past about 9/11 was a hoax and the FBI run some of the planes and those kind of things. But I think he's going to burn out just about as quickly as he took off.
He made a bunch of money. He's had a lot of success. He is charismatic. What does he believe in?
Nothing. That's the point. If you read what he said before he's running, it's completely opposite of what he's saying now. He believes in promoting himself and getting attention, but I don't think there's a serious policy bone in his body. But he's very, very smart and very, very smooth and well thought out what he says. It's just all nonsense because most of it's just inconsistent with what he said 2 years ago.
Trump loves him because he says nice things about Trump.
Yeah, well, he's smart enough to play the game with Trump, but Trump's pretty easy to figure out.
So is he a guy that also would be considered as a cabinet player by somebody?
A guy like that in your cabinet, you'd never control him. He'd be off doing whatever. Part of the cabinet's being part of a team, and I don't see a lot of team in him.
The governor of North Dakota.
Yeah, Doug Burgum, good guy, kind of a Reagan-esque approach to politics, a self-made billionaire, made money in real estate in North Dakota. I thought did a nice job at the debate, but again, he has no name ID. He has $1 billion. I don't know if he's going to have to spend half of it if he wants to get to the point where he's a contender, but he'd be probably great in a cabinet spot. But who knows? Maybe he catches on in Iowa or New Hampshire or something like that, but there's no real compelling reason for him. It's not like he's the arch conservative, the Trump or whatever. So he'll probably stay in the bottom tier.
We dial this back to 2015, and you and I were on the air talking about it regularly, that Hillary Clinton, while she may have been one of the most qualified on paper candidates ever, had no campaign idea. There was nothing aspirational, and by my account, in my opinion, and I think you agree with this, one of the worst candidates ever.
Remember we saw her in Iowa?
Yeah, when she blew off the people to take pictures?
A bunch of people, older people, Sunday night, freezing before the caucuses. Freezing night. We're in a gym in Iowa. She shows up 45 minutes late and drones on for an hour. And her whole speech was, go to my website and read my policies. The room was half empty by the time she finished.
Yeah, and she also denied or refused to take pictures with folks afterwards.
It was really just horrible.
But part of the problem there, I think, goes to some of the stuff you're talking about here is you need a message, and your message can't be. Hillary Clinton's message in 2015 was, it's my turn.
Yeah, exactly.
You need a message more than I have money or I care about people or it's all about the kids. You need a core message. Burgum doesn't have that, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think he has that core catchphrase, but he does have a message. He's a Reagan conservative, which is good. I think that's a good direction for the party to go in, but I just don't know if that's going to excite enough people to get him beyond being in the bottom tier.
One more wide-ranging thought on this. Some of the folks that get into this knowing they have no shot to win. Why do they do it?
I don't think anybody that gets into it, if you talk to them, think that they can't win. They all think they can win.
Real?
For real. They think they wouldn't. I don't think they do it. Maybe Asa Hutchinson's a little different. He's doing it for a cabinet play. But any billionaire that gets into a race absolutely thinks they can win, and there's good reason for it. Donald Trump won. There's been other examples of billionaires winning. J.B. Pritzker won governor here. He ran for Congress way back in the day, but never really held any elected office. So the billionaires have the ability to fund the campaigns and draft the message and get their message out. Yeah, they think they can win.
One more before the break, and then we'll come back and do the people that seem to be talked about more loudly. This is a guy who I think is interesting. He's got an interesting bit of experience. He's a moderate Republican by most accounts, but nobody knows his name, and that's Will Hurd.
Yeah, very impressive guy. But again, nobody knows his name. And at this late in the game, and it's still early, arguably, this late in the game,
you're like Yogi Berra. It's getting late pretty early.
Yeah, but it's just, you got to. The problem here is this for Republicans. Trump will win this walking away if there are 8 or 9 people in the race. This is what happened last time. Had people gotten out earlier last time, Marco Rubio would have won it. So that's what's going to dictate a lot who the nominee is going to be, is how many people are in this race come February, March.
Last one before the break is Tim Scott. And I'm not being a smartass when I say this. Is the fact that he is a lifelong bachelor a problem for the base?
I hadn't really thought about that, but somebody will make issue of it, I would think. It's not a problem, but somebody will do. Politics is a nasty business, and somebody will make an issue of it. But hopefully, those kind of things were over.
Well, you would like to think so, but if anybody would make an issue of it, you would think the base would. Listen, the guy's personal life is his business and not ours, but we live in a time where it's all our business because we have the internet. Just ask us.
Yeah, I mean, Lindsey Graham's been out there in South Carolina for decades in the same situation. So I don't know. I think not. I think he's fine. But I think his bigger problem is he didn't do very well at the debate. And I liked Tim Scott a lot as a candidate, but he just had a really weak debate performance. And a lot of people, including Nikki Haley, got a big bounce out of that debate because they performed well. And he's going to have to make it up next time. And unless Trump's there, we're probably going to get not as big an audience as we had for the last one.
The top competitors are Chris Christie, Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley. We'll go through those with Pat Brady when we come back. And I got a couple Democrat questions for you as well. The Live from My Office podcast is going to feature all 5 days of the 5 stages of Pick Someone Else, including Pat Brady. And we continue with the discussion here. Mike Pence is in a unique situation here. As a former vice president running against his former running mate, the only thing that ever came close to this, I think, in history would have been when Teddy Roosevelt ran against William Howard Taft and lost.
The Bull Moose Party.
And the Bull Moose bathtub. All right, so how does Pence get any traction here beyond what he already has?
He's in a terrible spot. I'm a fan of Governor Pence. When he was over here, or Vice President Pence when he was governor. He's a good, decent
governor
guy.
of Indiana. Most people know that.
Good, decent guy. But his problem is he's not Trumpy enough for the Trumpies, and he's too Trumpy for the anti-Trumpers. So he's kind of caught in this black hole of Trump. And he actually did the right thing when he was vice president. I know he gets criticized for it, but he supported the president. That's what the vice president's supposed to do. Even if you don't agree with him, you're there to support him. And then on January 6th, he did the right thing, which is adhere to the Constitution. He's getting grief for that. So he did the right thing, and he's a good man, but he's just caught in the middle. But there's an outside chance in Iowa he could do well. That northwestern part of Iowa is very, very kind of Christian conservative voters, and he fits that well, and they like him. And I think he had a decent debate night. So we'll see, but he is in a tough spot.
Will the big donors on the Republican side give him the money he needs?
Not yet, I don't think.
If he won in Iowa, would that change?
No.
So does Iowa and New Hampshire have the momentum it used to, or no?
I don't think Iowa does anymore, but New Hampshire does. That kind of starts it. Because Iowa it doesn't represent the entire party, I don't think. It's just kind of a swath of it. When you get to New Hampshire, you actually more independents. There are a lot more independent voters. I mean, that's how McCain won in 2000. You got all the independents, and we ended up winning by 19 over George Bush. But I think New Hampshire has more impact because it kind of starts the race, too, because you race down to South Carolina after that.
Everybody thought Governor DeSantis would be the other guy in this race, Trump and DeSantis. DeSantis has been shooting himself in the foot for weeks. Is he still relevant?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people still think that he's number 2, although the polls since the debates, he's dropped a lot. I'd say he's 4th or 5th now in Iowa and some of these in New Hampshire. But he's still got a lot of money, and a lot of people are still with him. That being said, he's just not a very good candidate. From a kind of a retail perspective. He did better at the debate, but I think it's just because he yelled. There wasn't any. You look at him,
but he yelled like an AI copy of himself. I don't know. Is there a real guy in there somewhere?
Well, people that knew him before, and I don't know him. I've met him. I don't know him, but I know people that know him well. That's kind of his personality. I'm not saying that critically. He's just not a warm and fuzzy guy. And politics is about convincing people that you're going to be a good, competent, empathetic president, and I'm not sure if he has that quality. Remember, he's only a one-term governor down there in Florida. It's not like he has a long track record of electoral success.
But how does a guy that socially awkward? I mean, this is not 200 years ago. You didn't have to ride your horse to the next town to literally get on a stump and make a stump speech. How does a guy that socially awkward get into this position?
Well, Trump made him in Florida, and he stayed with the culture war issues down there, which are big. And he won and actually did a pretty good job as governor. A lot of people that supported him believe he did a good job. Others don't agree, but he's been a pretty good governor. He's just not – there's a difference, I think, a huge difference between a local or statewide candidate and a national candidate. There's no bigger scrutiny than running for president of the United States, and a lot of people just can't do it.
Speaking of scrutiny, Chris Christie has got some stuff he's got to explain. Is he, other than a Trump attack dog, a full-throated candidate here who can actually be a threat to Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I was talking to one of his big donors last night at an event, and he's getting some momentum. He's going to have some money. He's delivering a message that some people want to hear, which is the truth, and pointing out the problems that President Trump has in his behavior. And I think he's a very effective spokesperson for that. Now, I'm not sure if that carries the day to get big enough numbers to win, but he's slowly climbing up in the polls. I think he's 2nd or 3rd in New Hampshire now.
In a post-Trump world, does Bridgegate matter?
No.
Bridgegate, for those of you who forgot, is when Chris Christie's administration shut down the bridge from Manhattan to Jersey at rush hour, and it was a huge story in the tri-state area, in New York in particular.
I think actually that might help him with certain sects of the Republican Party. It's the kind of – a lot of the people, I don't mean this disrespectfully, that like Trump like the in-your-face, stick-it-to-the-man type of approach, and that's what Christie did there.
But he pushed it off to his underlings.
Yeah, underlings, who actually that conviction was reversed, I believe, but by the Supreme Court. But some people actually – I think, and as odd as this may sound, that might actually help him in the Republican primary.
And he's got a brother that supposedly has some issues and things. Again, in the post-Trump world, I don't know that stuff like that matters anymore.
Don't we all have brothers that have issues?
My brother says that all the time. And Nikki Haley, to me, at least at this point, looks like the most qualified go-to, period.
Yeah, and the big issue still will be in this election is going to be abortion. And it's the big debate. And at the debate last week, she gave the absolute best answer I've heard from any Republican candidate in a long, long time on that issue. And she started out by pointing out we should agree to the things we can agree on. We don't like the late term. We don't like partial birth. We don't like parental notification laws. So we can all agree on that. But we also, in debating what the law should be, we can't demonize women. I still think this is a Pat Brady analysis, not a serious analysis. But when Barbie does $1.4 billion in 4 weeks, and it's a girl empowerment movie, women are motivated and women are tuned in and women are looking for someone to lift them up. Yeah. And she's perfect. I think if she were to win the nomination, she'll win the presidency. And it's a game changer for Republicans that the Republican Party will have elected the first female president with an immigrant background. But boy, is she qualified. I talked to her for just a little bit after the debate. Nice, measured, smart. I couldn't get a better candidate. So, if you're looking for an alternative, if you want to win, if you want to fight, vote for some of the people that like to fight. But if you want to actually win, govern, and have a conservative party in this country, then Nikki Haley's the only choice.
I want to talk to you about Biden for a second. He appears to be struggling more than ever in getting through the day. Will there be a Democrat that stands up and says, I think it's important that I run?
I think they have to stand down because Biden's so popular with labor. I don't think they can do anything until they get.
Explain why that is. Well, I mean, not that he's popular with labor, but explain why that matters.
Because you're just going to anger. If he doesn't step down, party politics, when you have the office, when you have the presidency, no one likes it if you go after the president, except Republicans historically have done that, Pat Buchanan and some of the other people. But I think that the people that support Biden would be really angered by it. But at a certain point, they really got to take a look at it. You know, Gavin Newsom's out there waiting. Governor Pritzker's out there waiting, I think. And
waiting. He's at the airport with a New Hampshire ticket in his hand.
But think about it. Governor Pritzker and the Democratic primary voter is pretty far left of center. He's run a very progressive agenda and been, whether you like it or not, just political science analysis, he fits perfectly with what Democratic primary voters want. He's gotten everything through on the far left that he's wanted to, and he can claim that he turned the state around. You can agree or disagree, or I know a lot of people don't like him, but the reality is in the Democratic primary, a guy with that kind of record and that kind of money, and we had him in an event a couple of weeks ago, he's as talented as anybody in a room.
Why wasn't he very good against Darren Bailey, who is not the brightest bulb in the room?
I think watching that he just is so irritated by Darren Bailey, which is easy to be. He did this. Governor Rauner and Governor Pritzker, I don't think, had their best nights when they debate, because I got the sense they didn't care for one another.
Yeah, well, but that's all well and good. I just he didn't.
He had an off night because he is a good debater. But I think he had an off night, but it didn't matter.
And I'm telling you now, one of the most underreported stories, and nobody on the national platform has had the guts to go near this, is why has Kamala Harris been backbenched to a point where we're 3 years in and nobody knows what she does.
Right.
Nobody knows what she stands for. Nobody knows that she's ready. To me, when the Biden White House took over, she should have been over his shoulder at every meeting. Yep. And she should have been a prominent. And by the way, even if you didn't like a thing she did, she should have been front and center for the last 3 years and going forward. And there's not a single story that I've seen that covers where's Kamala Harris and why has she not been talked about. And I know from background, and so do you, from people we know, they said the Biden people and Kamala Harris's offices don't necessarily get along. Who cares? You're not serving the American people. You got a president who is very old, who doesn't appear to be in good health, and it's rightfully a concern that he is of an age where he could die. And if that's the case, is she ready? Not based on anything I've seen.
Yeah, but I guess history will tell you that Harry Truman was vice president for 82 days and
didn't have the internet.
Had one meeting with
Roosevelt
before he dropped.
But we're talking two different things, because you don't get to ask that question, am I ready, once you get the job. I think it's a fair question for people to be asking now, and since everybody does have access, and they certainly could have campaigned her over the last 3 years, why have they done nothing with her?
Well, somebody's got to write a story on it, because I agree. I don't know the answer, but I agree that she's been nowhere. But she was such a disaster when she did speak. Maybe I don't know the story, but I agree with you completely. It's
bizarre. And completely gutless national media not covering it.
She's been to Chicago 3 times in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, but they're in a trick bag with her, too. Say that Biden doesn't run and she wants to. Are they going to tell the first, African-American female candidate, you're not our person?
Right.
Talk about a backlash. And Democrats need that African-American vote to win. That's why Hillary Clinton didn't win, because they didn't turn out because, she wasn't Barack Obama.
I get the politics of that, but wouldn't it be great if we were talking about the best person for the job instead of what color they are?
Yeah, I agree completely. But again, on the Republican side, Nikki Haley is the best person for the job. I mean, I remember when McCain and Obama were in 2008, the cover of The Economist was a picture of both of them, and it said America at its best.
Yeah.
You had two really solid, whether you hate or whatever, you had two solid candidates, good, smart patriots. And that works. But this, do we really deserve two guys, 80-year-old guys? Maybe it's time for a new generation.
Well, that's why you have to come to acceptance and go through the podcast and subscribe, rate, and review. Listen to it, and we'll cover the whole week for you. Just trying to be reasonable. Not all you texters are reasonable, but I'm trying to be reasonable. Theo Hardiman standing by. I'm going to talk about violence in Chicago, how to prevent it, and what he's trying to do about it. But in the meantime, thank you, Pat Brady.
See you guys.